Welcome back to Dominant Mets Nation. Today's video, we're going to talk about how David Stearns has already, in my opinion, screwed up. Fairly new, GM, just started, month on the job, and I got to say, let me start off by saying I love the hire. David Stearns, native New Yorker, seems like he grew up as a Met fan, talks about going on the 7 train, seems like he has a passion and a good feel for New Yorkers, so he feels what New Yorkers feel. But in his first month of the job, and all we have to really kind of judge him on is what happened recently. He didn't, in my opinion, struck out with the Craig Counsell. I thought that was going to be like a home run situation. These guys come from Milwaukee together. Them in one organization make each other stronger. GM knows the manager knows the GM, almost automatically. That is a bond, a strong bond. And as Met fans, I'm like, okay, you know what? David Stearns is a different philosophy. First move out of the box, gets his guy, gets his manager. Craig Counsell, a guy how 10 years ago just became a new manager and over the decade has performed and has transformed into one of the best managers in the game. And what a great move it would have been to bring a guy like this over to New York. A guy to plug in that New York Mets clubhouse. That clubhouse who has had controversy and has had a lot of discourse and a lot of problems. From Max Scherzer to Justin Verlander to Pete Alonso discussion to Jeff McNeil, Francisco Lindor over the years. And you guys making a lot of money. And with those egos, you need a guy who's respected, a guy who's done it before. So what better to get a guy like Craig Counsell? But no, we can't get Craig Counsell. David Stearns can't get Craig Counsell. We get a guy by the name of Carlos Mendoza. And do we know if Carlos Mendoza is going to work out? No, nobody knows. But what we do know is that there was a successful guy, a known quantity that we could have got. We could have gotten Craig Counsell, but apparently he wanted to stay in the Midwest. So from what David Stearns is telling us, the guy had to follow his heart and he stayed in the Midwest. And I heard a couple comments that David Stearns made and it kind of just made me upset. Here were the comments. They asked David Stearns, what did you think about Craig Counsell? Were you surprised? And he goes, I don't know. Craig plays it close to the vest. I wasn't really sure if he was coming here, going there. You don't know. It's your job to know. It's your job to know with this guy. You're his, supposedly close friend. This is what worries me. I know Billy Epler was a mess. But David Stearns is an analytical guy. That's his background. And I'm kind of worried about how he's going to handle New York and how he's going to handle selling New York. It seemed like he did a horrible job selling New York to his buddy. He couldn't even sell New York to his buddy. So he has to sell New York to Shohei Ohtani. He has to sell New York to any big free agent. We trade for Juan Soto, then you got to sell him on signing a huge contract. So anybody that we want to come to New York, you have to sell New York. He did a horrible job of selling New York, and that is part of the job. That is part of being a GM. You need to sell New York. He did not sell New York to Craig Counsell. I was very disappointed on the comment. And you know what? He had a golden opportunity. You want to know why? Craig Counsell goes, I'm going to the highest bidder. I'm going to the guy who gives me the most money. Okay, all right, the Mets, they got the most money. And Craig Counsell said, I'm doing this because I want to be a union guy. I want to set that bar. So therefore, I'm like, all right, the Mets are definitely signing him because Steve Cohen has the most money. So we have Craig Counsell. But no. I don't know if David Stearns is I have no idea what happened. I don't know if he got sidetracked or whatnot. Didn't offer him the most money, and he goes to Chicago. You could have offered him $12 million a year, 4 years, And Craig Counsell had to accept it. He had to accept it because it would have been a highest average per year for a manager to make. And according to what he says, he would have accepted it. And if he would have stayed in the Midwest because of his family and denied having that highest contract, then he would have went against what he told everybody he was going to do. So therefore, I just feel David Stearns just missed the ball, dropped the ball. So, and it's unless one caveat that I think, and this is probably what David Stearns is a philosophy, the manager, if the caveat is, in David Stearns' opinion, that the manager has little meaning and means nothing, then fine. But I feel that throughout the year, your manager is worth a couple games. The manager's going to be worth a couple games. In a division with the Braves, in a division with the Phillies, in a division where the Marlins are improving, that couple games is going to be important. That is going to be for seeding. That is going to be for playoff positioning. And you know what? I want a seasoned guy in there. That's it. Bottom line. That's what I want. Those are my opinions. Okay, so now I'm going to go to another thing that I don't like what David Stearns said. And they asked him about the GM situation, and they said, hey, what do you think about filling the GM position? Are you going to fill it? And he simply smiles and he goes, no, I'm not going to fill it. And then they go, well, why aren't you going to fill it? And he goes, well, we just got so much on our plate. I just don't have the time. And then I automatically think, if you have so much on your plate, why not hire help? Why not hire somebody who can take some stuff off your plate? So that to me was BS. Plain BS. I mean, I'm not sure how you felt about that, but I just felt that was BS. If you want to drop a comment, if you didn't think that was BS or not, I thought that was plain BS. You hire another guy in the organization if you need help. And I think he's going to need help because he may be good in scouting. He may be good in finding gems. But I think what I'm saying in the acquisition, he needs a sales guy. David Stearns does not seem like a sales guy to me. And I think that's where he's going to suffer. And I think that's where Billy Epler, that connection, that duo was going to mesh well together. Because Billy Epler seemed like he needed a different philosophy, a different perspective, and Stearns was that guy, that leader that would provide that. And Epler, in turn, would provide the other guy who would go out to Shohei Ohtani, Yamamoto. He had a relationship with in Japan. It was just, I think, a good combination, and I think he needs a GM with that skill set. Okay, so that was BS. Now, let's go over to the next comments, and that is dealing with Pete Alonso. And it was asked of him, we spoke to Scott Boras, and Scott Boras basically said that Pete Alonso wants it known that he is willing to talk to the New York Mets about a contract. Right? So how does David Stearns really respond? And in my opinion, David Stearns, when asked about what he felt about Boras and Pete Alonso's comments, he really said nothing. He really didn't say anything. He said, well, Pete's a big, talented guy. He's very good with home runs, but we have to evaluate other parts of his game. Which right there, I'm like, you know what? He's not really, and I kind of thought this all from the beginning. He is not high on Pete. He is not high on Pete, and it may be him negotiating in the media, but I don't think Pete Alonso is a David Stearns guy. I don't think so, especially since Pete Alonso, obviously, last month, he switched agents to Scott Boras, and when you switch agents to Scott Boras, you are looking to cash in big time. You are looking to cash in. So I don't think that David Stearns is enamored by the fact that he would have to pay a guy over $200 million going into his 30s that is limited defensively. He is limited in the field, and all he does is hit home runs. His average has been tanking in the last year or so. So I don't think he's a David Stearns guy. That's just my opinion. I am a Pete Alonso fan. I would like to see him end his career as a Met, but I'm also interested to see the path David Stearns, the vision that he has for this team. And frankly, I don't think it includes Pete Alonso. I'm very excited to see how David Stearns builds this team, how he approaches free agency, how he builds the bullpen, how he builds the rotation. We just have one guy, Kodai Senga, and two guys. Quintana is in the rotation as well. But we have 3 or 4 big rotation spots to fill. So whether we go after Snell, Aaron Nola, Yamamoto, those are 3 guys that would be nice. And just on that note, it was asked to David Stearns, are you going to get a kind of co-ace or number 2? Because the Mets have always had 2 good starting pitchers. That has been their philosophy over the last couple years. And David Stearns kind of smirked again, and he goes, you know what? It would be nice, but it's not the only way to win. We can win with lesser pitches. So we may not be investing in a Nola, a Blake Snell, or a Yamamoto. We may not be, especially since I'm hearing Yamamoto is going to be demanding or, expecting a contract of over $200 million. And I believe that's very risky on an unknown quantity, although he's been very good in Japan, earner on average under 1.5 in the last couple of years. I mean, he's been phenomenal, and he pitches. He's got an arm that hits upper 90s, and he throws 130, 140 pitches, so he's durable. But he's 24, 25 right now. You never know how that's going to last over the duration of his career. You sign him for 6, 7 years. You don't know how he's going to be in 3, 4 years. You don't know if he needs Tommy John surgery. It's so prevalent these days with pitchers, especially the guy who supposedly puts so much torque on his arm. So maybe David Stearns is right. Maybe investing that much money in a premium starting pitcher. We've seen that in Texas. We saw that Jacob deGrom investing that much money. We didn't even need Jacob deGrom. So maybe David Stearns has a point there. So I'm willing to let him with the players, build his team, build his vision. I'm just not happy about the manager. I'm really not. And Carlos Mendoza may be the next greatest thing. He may be the next greatest manager. I really don't care, because I feel David Stearns already struck out. And I feel like, kind of, even the way it happened on Monday a few days ago about how it seemed like David Stearns was notified, he got the call, and then he pivoted straight to Mendoza. So, and then it seemed like in the media, okay, the Mets, they made the decision. Now Craig Counsell is going to go elsewhere. When in reality, the Mets were just dumped. Craig Counsell went elsewhere. He went to the Cubs. So good for him. He got a great deal. He got a lot of money. He set the market for managers. But as a New York Mets fan, I expect a lot from the Mets. I expect the Mets to have a great offseason. We're gonna be covering the offseason because it is going to be exciting. Anybody who's watching this video, I really appreciate it. I'm sure you've noticed we haven't posted any videos in a couple months, and I'm sure you posted seen that we have a new background. I've moved locations, so it was very messy, and now we're going to be a lot more consistent because I actually have a home location to film from. So that is going to be good. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. This is the best time of the year. The off season where you have a guy who is incompetent as a president. This is Steve Cohen's guy. This is his guy. His guy. So I anticipate a very good off season, or at least a very different offseason. An offseason that we have not seen, hopefully, in the last couple of years, because we haven't been successful. So we need to be doing things different. And we got a guy in the front office who is familiar with the team's history. He is familiar with the fan base, and he is familiar with building a team. He is familiar with building a bullpen, with building a pitching staff, and he seems to have it down packed. He seems to know that you win with pitching, defense, and he talks about hitting. So pitching, defense, and you get timely hitting, because that's what you're going to need to win in this day and age. And also too, you don't need these guys making $40 and $50 million. You really don't. You look at the teams who were good in the playoffs. They kind of they had clutch hitting, but they also mashed their way. I just want to see what David Stearns does. And what I'm trying to say is there are different ways to do it. The 1, 2, 3 aces in the rotation, especially the 1-2 Jacob deGrom, Justin Verlander. We don't have to worry about paying guys $80 to $100 million to be a number 1, 2, and 3 starter. It's just not the way to be successful, and I'm excited to see somebody who's different. So thank you so much if you made it this far. I really appreciate it. This is our first video in such a long time, so, with the algorithm, it kind of takes a while. If you could drop a like and drop a comment, that really helps things out. So I really appreciate you. Thank you. And as I always say, if you've watched my videos, it can't get any worse, but it probably will. Hopefully it won't. We got David Stearns, but 0 for 1 with the move for me, getting a manager, but hey, you never know. Carlos Mendoza may be the next Show Torre. Have a great night.